Good morning, everybody. We've had a great presentation from Mr. Kenton and Mr. Lawrence Loh. They have given you the micro picture of what goes on for your property, for your development. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take a more helicopter view. It's a more macro picture because they've already dealt with all the issues that you deal with when you're running a condominium from a micro point of view. So today, I'm going to start with a quote from an author and an inspirational writer who says this about what a team is. I'm going to talk about the teams. A team is not a group of people who work together. A team is a group of people who trust each other. The central, most important thing is trust. And that is the element that must run through any property development if it is to succeed. Now, you will find 3 teams in any property development. It can be the smallest condo to the largest multi-complex development. You will find 3 teams. And these 3 teams will be very important because they will set the tone for whether your development appreciates in value, whether the rentals go up, or whether it depreciates. So I want to talk about these 3 teams and touch on what is important about these 3 teams and what are the 3 I consider the most important rules that each of these 3 teams must adhere to for your development to succeed. Now, I call it the property management triangle. Of course, all of you are aware of it. And what it constitutes is you have the owners and resident owners. Many of you are that. You have the management committee. I think some of you are also on that. And of course, you have the property manager, which many of you are that as well. And as I said before, you'll find these 3 teams in every single development. So let me deal with each of the teams. The first is the property manager. Most of you are property managers. You're the frontliners. You are the ones who deal with the residents, the owners, the contractors. You are the ones who oversee the security, the cleaners, the gardeners. You are the front people who manage the property. But remember, you are subject to the management committee. They appoint you, they can also change you, or they can even change individual members of your team. So they have control over you. So your performance is crucial as to how the development is managed. Now, so I won't go very far into this one. Let's go to the next team member. The next team, the second team, is the management committee. Now, the management committee comprises of a diverse group of individuals. They can be owners, they can be family members of owners, they can be representatives of corporate owners. So they're a very diverse team. And each of them is elected at an EGM held by the owners, but again, they are subject to the control of the owners in the sense that the owners can remove the entire committee or they can remove individual members of the committee at any time. They just pass a resolution and everybody is out, right? Now, but despite this power of the owners, it is the management committee of your corporation that has the most effective control over the maintenance and management of the development. This is because under the law, the management committee exercises all the duties and responsibilities, all the powers of the management corporation. This is provided for in the law. And most important of all, they sign the checks. So they have effective control. And that is very, very important is the composition of your management committee. Now, you've heard from the previous presenters, Ken and Mr. Ng, Ken and Lawrence Low, the importance of the management committee. So let me just talk a bit about the management committee. If you liken it to a football team, this is the reality. If you liken it to a football team, these are the types of different players you'll find on the team management committee. First, you have the forwards or the strikers. These are the people who are the most active on the committee. They sit right on top of you when you're the property manager. They follow everything you do. They follow up the projects. They follow up the activities that happen. These are the strikers, right? I call them the strikers, the forwards. But sometimes, as mentioned by Lawrence just now, you have those on the team with an agenda. Now, sometimes the agenda is good, but sometimes the agenda is not so good. And they want something done, either for themselves, for their friends, or for a minority group. So these are the ones that need to be controlled by the other players, right? Then you have what I call the defenders. The defenders are the management committee members who don't want to spend any money. They want to maintain the condo as it is. They don't want any change. They try to minimize the expenditure. What they want to see is the sinking fund grow. Some of them just want that. And some of them will look at every single detail from a financial point of view, but not necessarily from a larger point of view. So these are the defenders. Then we have the midfield players. The midfield players, they like to sit on the committee, but sometimes they do very little and talk very little. But the worst are those who do very little and talk a lot, but don't do anything. So you'll find those also on your committee. And sometimes they vote with the strikers, and sometimes they vote with the defenders, depending on the flow of flow. So let's move to the next one, the owners and residents owners. Now, they are responsible for providing the management corporation with the lifeblood of the management corporation, service charges, building fund. If they don't supply this lifeblood to your management corporation, you will be in trouble. The management committee will be in trouble. The property manager will be in trouble because you cannot sustain your development, you cannot improve, you cannot maintain. So their job, you have to make sure, is they pay their management and service charges and sinking fund regularly. Now, these are the owners who also elect the management committee. That is their power. And every general meeting, they will elect the management committee. But as I mentioned before, they also have the power to remove the entire management committee or individual members of the management committee. So that is their power. And they also have the power to restrict the powers of the management committee. They pass a resolution saying you can only spend that much, and they can even give directions to the management committee by passing a resolution in an annual general meeting or an extraordinary general meeting. But the good thing is, this team, owners and residents, are not very well organized. Normally, they're not very well organized because you only get to meet them at the AGM or the EGM. Or if there's a big issue in the community, then you get to meet them. But otherwise, they normally sit back and let the management committee and the property managers get on with it. The only time I've seen a well-organized group of owners and managers is when they are a developer who holds on to more than 50% of the units, or a real estate investment trust who controls more than 50% of the development. In those instances, you'll find they are much more active and they observe what is going on. Now, how do you get these three teams to trust each other and to work together for the benefit of the development? Now, looking at the big picture, there are three rules. I'm just going to talk about what I consider the three most important rules that each of these teams needs to apply so that they're of the same mind and they work properly together. The first is always act in the best interest of the management corporation. I will deal with each of these separately. Secondly, as some of the speakers have already mentioned, communication is key, communication. And thirdly, I will talk about what I call apply the sunlight test. So let me explain each of these rules. Act in the best interest of the management corporation. Ask yourself a question for every decision you make. Are we acting in the best interest of the management corporation, which essentially means the owners and residents of your development, right? Is the contract that we're going to sign, is this award that we're going to make in the best interest of the management corporation, or is it in the best interest of myself, or my friends, or this gentleman, or the striker? Think about that. Make that decision based on that. I just want to give you a live example, something that's really happening. There's a 20-year-old condo, residential condo in Kuala Lumpur, which has 130 units. Not very big, but it is a quite well-established condo. Due to its age, the upcoming projects that this condo has to undertake are the refurbishment of the lifts, repainting. And this is going to cost them in the region of 5 million ringgit, right? They have in their sinking fund only 1.2 million ringgit. So what this means is they're going to have to raise funds from the 130 owners, substantial funds, in order to carry out these projects. Earlier this year, the management committee decided to implement a project costing $130,000 to install the infrastructure necessary for every apartment to have its own electric vehicle charger in the car park. They want to give every single owner an electric charger for their car park, right, to implement this. This decision of the MC was based on a survey finding. They did a survey, and they found that 24 owners, which of course included some of the management committee members, 24 owners either own or intended to own an electric or hybrid vehicle, right? So based on that, they implemented the project because the limit for going to EGM in their condo is $150,000. So $130,000, they spent it to put this, despite the fact that they need to raise a lot more money for the painting project. Not surprisingly, this has resulted in a substantial number of owners voicing their objections to the project, and for the first time in 20 years, it has caused a major rift in that community. What has happened? Trust has been lost, right? So you decide, was that in the interest of the management corporation, or was that in the interest of a minority? But this has happened. This is the reality of what happens. So acting in the best interest of the management corporation is key. I move on to the second, communication. As some of the speakers have said, communication in your development is crucial. Whether you do it by publishing your management committee meetings, general meetings, you hold town hall meetings, put things on the notice board, use your website, of course, email and WhatsApp. But communicate, communicate, communicate. Always tell the residents and the owners what is going on in the condo. Always do that. But remember, communication is not a one-way process. It is a two-way process. You must face the criticism. You must face the pushback, the feedback that you get. Don't just brush it aside and say, look, I've told you already, too bad. Deal with it. Address it. And this takes me on to the third most important rule. And it has something to do with sunlight, as I mentioned before. And the third important rule is this: apply the sunlight test to your decisions. Can what we want to do withstand public scrutiny? If what I'm going to do, I have nothing to worry about, open it to the sunlight, let everybody look at it. Nothing to hide. If you can defend it on that basis, then you go ahead and do it. If you can't, then you better modify it or amend it. Because then you can at least react, you can give feedback, you can discuss, and you will not have problems at the AGM as mentioned earlier. So, as I've mentioned before, a team is not a group of people who work together. A team is a group of people who trust each other. So if you, in your development, manage to achieve the golden triangle of property management, I think you will certainly be in line for the next EdgeProp Management Best Managed Property Award. Okay, thank you very much. That is my talk for today. Sorry, I'd just like to take the opportunity to address the question on pigeons, because I've dealt with pigeons before in one of the developments. Now, there are 3 proven ways of dealing with pigeons. 1, bird netting. All right, bird netting, that means you net up the areas where the pigeons go. But remember, this is not fish net, you know. It is bird netting. Fish net, when you leave it out there, is very cheap, but it deteriorates over time. So normally, the pigeons will be in places which are very inaccessible. You'll need scaffolding and things to put it up. So don't put fish net, because you'll be doing it every few years. The fish net will disappear. Go and buy special bird netting. This lasts for a long, long time, okay? It's bird netting. That's one thing you do. Second thing is bird spikes. I think you've seen all those. They're very cheap. You get strips of bird strikes. You can buy it on Lazada. You put those on the ledges where the pigeons land, and once they touch it, they won't go away. All right? They'll go away. The third is gel. But gel, you put it on the ledge, the pigeon lands, it doesn't like it. But over time, the gel also comes off. So depending on which area the pigeons land on, you might want to try one of those things. Personally, I use a water gun. Because the pigeons land nearby, but pigeons are intelligent. You shoot them with a water gun a few times, they don't come back. Okay? But you must be persistent. And it also works the same with bats. Use a water gun, you splash them a few times, they don't come back anymore. So just to help out on that question, that's how you deal with pigeons. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khaw.